Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to Triple Double Nation. Today we'll be covering the most overpowering NBA super teams of all time. Let's get into the video. Since LeBron James' infamous decision back in the summer of 2010, player movement in the NBA has erupted, both as an action and a talking point among pundits and fans alike. Between that, Kevin Durant going to the Golden State Warriors, and now to this season's Brooklyn Nets, the concept of the player-generated super team has grown into a yearly possibility for fans. Whether or not it's amazing or horrifying entirely depends on if your team is a lucky recipient of such a windfall of star power. But to many, the concept of the super team ruins the game. The latest super team building in Brooklyn has come under much of the scrutiny thus far into the season. After all, the post-KD Golden State world was supposed to be more level, wasn't it? Everyone was obsessed with duos like LeBron AD, Kawhi PG, Giannis Middleton, Simmons Embiid. We were finally out of the super team era. Before this season, the Nets were just a duo with KD and Kyrie Irving. What happened? Why must James Harden, Blake Griffin, and LaMarcus Aldridge ruin the game for everyone? Relax, people, take your medicine, breathe in and out, count to 10, and use your inside voices. Of course, these Nets seem overpowering at the moment, but you forget that neither Aldridge nor Griffin, who are both outside their primes, are even the fourth most important player on the team. Sure, they seem like overwhelming favorites, but we all said the same thing about the Lakers acquiring Marc Gasol and Montrezl Harrell. More than that, these Nets haven't actually won anything. They're an undeniable force this season to be sure, but they aren't the first super team or even the best necessarily. If you want to look at some truly overpowering squads built purely to destroy, we can do that. Let's look back in history at some of the actual most overpowering super teams of all time. 2016 and 17 Golden State Warriors. Here's a riddle. Take a team that went 73-9 and replace its worst starter with the best perimeter scorer in the league, possibly of all time. He's also basically a 7-footer who can defend at an elite level. You get the best record in the league and a championship with only one game lost in the playoffs. Most of the teams on this trip down memory lane will have a big three, a trio of stars with clearly defined roles. This team had four. Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson are the best shooting backcourt of all time. Draymond Green was an offensive and defensive engine and resident wild card. Kevin Durant, the Frankenstein element on his team, was the greatest scorer in the league, with guard-like handles at the size. Better than most teams on this list too was that all four of these players were under the age of 30. Four superstars all in the exact middle of their athletic primes. It doesn't get better than that. Except for the bench, which stayed intact since Durant was brought on without need for a trade. Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, and David West were all there as well. This Warriors team has a legitimate claim to the throne of the best NBA team of all time. (2007 and 8 Boston Celtics). The original Big Three. Many forget, but the first real Frankenstein in the NBA's 21st century ledger was actually built in Boston. No, it wasn't done with a TV special, nor was it player designed, but this move was the one that put Danny Ainge on the map, landing Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen after dumping a bunch of young players and draft picks on Minnesota Timberwolves and then Seattle Supersonics. What followed was the largest single-season turnaround in NBA history and an NBA championship. The Big Three Celtics were 66-16 with all three stars lighting it up on both ends of the court. What puts these Celtics over the top as a super team was their composition outside and within the three stars. Pierce was a bucket getter, Ray Allen was relegated to a super sniper role, and KG was the big man in the middle and defensive anchor. As for the pieces around the stars, those were no small thing either. Only three players on Boston's roster that season and then come back to this video. 1995 and 96 Chicago Bulls. This was a super team. Don't deny it because of greatness. The 96 Bulls were possibly the most beautiful collection of talent ever assembled, and similar to the 08 Celtics, in each of the Chicago Big Three knew their roles. Michael Jordan was, well, Michael Jordan. Scottie Pippen was a facilitator and top defender. New acquisition Dennis Rodman was the muscle-bound rebounder. Regarding the support pieces, this is one of the teams that should have just been considered unfair. European star Tony Kukoc was in the meat of his prime as a double-digit bucket getter. Ron Harper was a human padlock on defense, and Steve Kerr had a legit 50-50-90 season. In fact, Dennis Rodman's plus-minus was lower than all three of these guys. This was the greatest two-way bludgeoning stick in NBA history, and 72-10 doesn't come from nowhere. '85 and '86 Boston Celtics. Surprised? Don't be. The usual suspects are here. Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, and Robert Parrish have been humbly called the greatest front court of all time, and with good reason. The same feeling of well-defined roles remains, as Bird was a distributor and perimeter threat. McHale was the beast in the post, and Parrish the steady anchor. But did you know that these Celtics also had a sniper? They were Frankenstein a bit too, having acquired former Finals MVP and 5-time All-Star Dennis Johnson to the man the point guard position, but the kicker was their 6th Man of the Year, former MVP Bill Walton. You forget about Bill Walton on this team, but with modern NBA audiences yelling and screaming about Blake Griffin, they forgot that these Celtics acquired both his equivalent and more in accolades with Johnson, and even more with Walton. This team was simply unfair. How else could Michael Jordan score 63 points in a playoff game and still get swept otherwise? Honorable mentions. With respect to the Lakers teams, both old and new, no teams were considered that were either duos or organically built outside of Kareem. The Showtime Lakers were all built through the NBA draft, and Kobe/Shaq and LeBron AD were simply duos. Only Frankensteins are allowed on this list, same goes for the 2000 Spurs. The flaws with LeBron's Miami teams were obvious, and they always seemed to have a legitimate rival. The 2020 and 21 Nets could surely make the cut, but the point of